All right, we are going live.
Cool.
Go ahead and talk really quick just to test it.
All right. Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Go ahead and talk really quick just to test it. I think this is working.
Right. Hey, what's up,
Let me listen to the
guys?
stream.
How you doing?
All right, we are live. Hey, what is up, guys? Thank you all so much for joining in here. We've already got 60 people in here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Jimmy C, Captain Nerd, Green Bat, John Dean, Jimmy C, Mr. Dark, Fortnite, Mr. 1199, Summer, Noah, John, Christian, Jimmy C. Once again, thank you guys all for joining and being in here. We've got a great stream planned for you guys. So, of course, I'm joined by Jake Irogen, Gamer.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So, Salvage, unfortunately, is not going to be here today. We wanted him to be here. But unfortunately, he was not able to join. He's got some computer issues going on. So, you know, it happens. It's like that sometimes. But I'm really, ecstatic that everyone's here. We've already got almost 100 viewers in here, so this is going to be a great stream. And for those of you who don't know, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about the new Batman game, of course. We're going to be talking about our expectations for the rest of the year. We're going to be talking about, our journey up to this point. I wanted to recap some of the things that we know for the rest of 2019, and also just kind of be retrospective about what we've, our journey thus far up to this point. And first things first, Jake. Avengers: Infinity War. A little bit of a side note. What are you expecting from that? Are you going to see it opening night, I assume?
I wish I wasn't able to get tickets in time, so I'll definitely see it that weekend. But yeah, probably not opening night. I'm excited. I'm gonna avoid spoilers. I hope it's good. I have pretty high expectations for it. So.
Yeah, me too. I have tickets for Thursday night. Going
Nice.
with a friend here at UNC. I'm really excited for it. My prediction is Cap and Iron Man both die together, so they're going to be reunited, and then they're going to die right after that. Bet my money on that. No, I think that we're going to see a lot of carnage, and I actually really like that, even though I'm going to be sad in the moment. But the problem that I've had with the Marvel movies is I feel like they bait and switch you a lot, or they make you think characters are going to die and they don't, and then they really only kill expendable characters. Like, who's the last MCU character to die? Like Quicksilver. And they just introduce them so they do that shit all the time. So anyway,
Or
actually
Yondu. In
Yondu.
Guardians too.
Exactly. So not any of the ones we actually like.
Yeah.
So it's it doesn't even matter. So I am actually pretty excited for that. Is the audio loud enough, guys? Can we all comment and just let us know how the audio is working? Mushroom Snow Productions, thanks so much for being here, dude. Oh, also, guys, of course, not an expectation or anything, but if you guys would like to donate, that would be incredible. As many of you know, I just bought all this Streamlabs stuff, so that was an expensive investment. So if you guys want to, if you have a couple dollars or whatever, that would be great. I would really appreciate it. You can do it either through the link in the description. There is Streamlabs, and you can donate through there, or you can put it in the chat box through YouTube or through Streamlabs. Either way, it'll pop up on the screen here, and you'll get a shout out as well. And my eternal gratitude. But almost at 200 viewers, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. Christian, Daniel, Caleb, Ali, Noah. Sounds great. Are you sure it's not too quiet? Audio sounds fine. I wouldn't miss a video, man. Thank you, Landon. Don't get me started on endgame speculation. Yeah, there is a lot of it. One of my friends, Daniel, he has this crazy theory about... I can't even remember all of it. He just has these crazy... his theory was that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is going to be in the movie, and so is every other Hellboy from 2002, and he has all this crazy shit, and he's like, well, Kevin Feige said this on this day, and that means that, okay, yeah, whatever. But anyway. Okay, so, sounds like the audio is looking good. You sound fine. Thank you, Ludacris. Okay, so, let's get into it. So... what I wanted to talk about first is for this new Batman game. If you guys remember, there's this guy named Ali, I think. Do you remember this guy, Jake?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
So this guy, here's what he said. He said that we're going to be getting an announcement for a new DC game by E3. And what he said is this. He said they're planning on releasing WB Montreal's DC game, or not releasing it, excuse me, revealing it at E3. And basically what he said is that if they are not ready, if WB Montreal is not ready by E3, they will instead reveal Rocksteady's game. So what this means is that we will be getting an announcement by E3. According to Ali, if what he says is true. This is an industry guy. He's not Jason Schreier or anything, but he is, a longtime industry guy. And I am personally very hopeful of this, and this makes a lot of sense to me. Now, here's what Jake and I were agreeing with. If you haven't seen Jake's recent video, just type Irogen Gamer in the search bar. But what we both kind of talked about is that we're not very confident we're going to get a game here in 2019. This is not to say that it won't happen, but it's just to say that we're not necessarily like super confident, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, with that being said, though, I think a reveal in 2019 is still a huge possibility, and E3 is certainly the time for them to do it because they have the sort of window of opportunity. They have all of that mainstream sort of viewership potential. And I personally am really confident that we will get something by E3. Now, here's one of my concerns, is that if you guys remember, in late 2018, they started doing this redacted campaign, all the developers. They started teasing us with redacted this, redacted that, and really teasing us with the Court of Owls t-shirt. A lot of different things. They were really trying to tease us there. And it seems to me as though that teasing has gone down. Is it just me?
No, it definitely has.
Now, what do you think about this, Jake? There's two different things. One thing that I said is that maybe it's kind of the silence before the storm, so to speak, that they really want to make sure they don't fuck anything up and accidentally say the wrong thing or leak it or whatever beforehand. Or it's kind of maybe a bad sign. What do you think?
I really think May is sort of the... I don't know. It's interesting because you say E3, and I think it's possible. At the same time, Sony is not going to be at E3, and the time that they went quiet is really weird because it seems like the time that they announced something, and it's just very odd that they haven't said anything yet. Because if they have a game that they feel confident in, I feel like they'd show it at this point, just because we've been waiting so long, regardless of what, even if it's coming out in 2020, I feel like they'd already be pushing and marketing it. So I feel as if we don't get something by E3, it's really, that's going to be terrible if we don't get something by then. But even if we don't get something by May, that's going to concern me a lot. And I won't have very much confidence in E3 if we don't get something before then.
Yeah, now here's the thing for me. Oh, the Arkham channel's in here. Thank you so much for joining. Angel Slickmoff, once again, thank you guys for being moderators as well. So, I agree with you. Here's the way that I think about it, is that I've seen so many people comment in my videos saying that there is a sense of entitlement that myself and other fans feel to get a reveal. In other words, they've said, well, we don't even have a trailer yet. Why are you talking about this? Why are you getting us excited about this? And the reason is because if you all recall, I know everyone here watching this knows this, but in 2015, I believe it was,
December 2015.
Yeah, December 2015, WB comes out and says, we are making 2 DC games that is not a part of Rocksteady and what they're doing, 2 separate ones at this WB Games Montreal studio. So naturally, given that was 4 years ago, we have kind of been thinking about okay, what games could this be? We're looking at some of the tweets of developers and okay, they've got some Court of Owls stuff. That's very weird. That's maybe vindicative of a Batman game or what have you. And naturally, fans are speculative, and we get excited and we talk and theorize about things. And the other problem that I have with this is that people forget that I actually saw images of one of the games they were working on several years ago. This was, I think, in 2016 or 2017. And people are saying, well, why are you getting us so excited for this? And the reason is because I knew the game was real, right? And that's all I can kind of say about it. Also, is the chat box not showing up on screen?
I'm seeing it.
You are seeing it? Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, never mind. I thought it was glitching out. Anyway, okay, so people were saying this to me and saying that I am entitled or that fans have no right to be upset about not having a reveal. But I kind of have a different opinion about it. I think that fans do have the right to at least have some kind of update from WB, given how long it's been, of 4 years. And here's the thing: is that if they knew that these games were not going to be revealed, the first two that they were making a Suicide Squad game and a Damian Wayne Batman game, it's probably better that they didn't release a CGI trailer for those games. But unless they're anticipating the two games that they're working on now to be canceled, why would they not come out and have a CGI trailer? And the problem is that several years ago they got us so excited for this, and now we're just kind of sitting here waiting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel as though it's within their best interest to maintain the fan excitement and to remind us that these games are still in production, because since then we haven't had an official press release. That was the last official press release we have had regarding DC games.
Yeah, and I'm under the impression personally that the longer they wait, the worse it gets, because like you said in your video, we're going to start having people who are more casual fans of the Arkham games who probably won't be as interested just because it's been so long. And it's not in their best interest to keep waiting, but it's also just, I don't know, it's kind of, it gets increasingly worrisome the longer they wait, because it either means that they're not confident in the game and that they don't want to show it because they don't know whether or not it's going to get canceled, which this late in the year, that is not a good sign.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is that they're just super adamant of like, yeah, we're revealing it in May and then releasing it in November, which I don't know. It's just been so long. This game is 2 years overdue. So I think breaking the record of announcing a game exactly, 8 months before it comes out or 6 months before it comes out, I think that could be broken without any real consequences.
I agree. And I just want to honestly give a shout out to everyone in here, not just because you're watching our stream, but honestly, like, I really commend you all for sticking with the Batman Arkham games and like this entire fandom. Honestly, I think it's incredible that you guys are so passionate about these games, like Jake and I are, that you're still here talking about them, even though it's been so many years without anything to get anyone excited. And the fact of it is, most of the fan base has left. Most of the people I see say that like the Batman Arkham games, it's a dead franchise. There's no reason to talk about it. And unfortunately, WB hasn't given us a lot to really disprove what those people are saying, what those people are sort of their perspective on it. However, what I think is that there's clearly something different that's happening in the era at WB Games Montreal, because developers for the first time are actually teasing this stuff, really indicating that something's happening here. And with Ali, who is an industry guy, as I said, not Jason Schreier, what he's saying is that by June, we are going to have a reveal at E3. Now, Jake, you mentioned that Sony is not going to be at E3, so do you think that disproves what Ali was saying?
No, not necessarily. I still think it's possible that they could be at the Xbox conference or something like that. It's just, I think it brings the likelihood down significantly, because Sony is by far the biggest conference. Like, even last year when Xbox did a really good conference, Sony was still the main event. And Warner Brothers Games does a booth, but they don't do like their own conference or anything. And I don't know, everyone always gets excited, like, oh, they'll announce something at the booth. The only thing that's ever announced at a booth is like some indie game. They'll never show some big brand new game, because the conferences are where all the big industry people are. The booths, you get a few people there and they'll try some gameplay or something, but that's not really where you announce a game. So unless they're going to announce it at like the Xbox conference, that's the only possibility, I think, because there's no other conference I could see it getting announced at.
The Arkham channel says, in my opinion, a May reveal is more likely than an E3 one. That
I agree,
goes off
100%. I 100% agree with that.
Okay, why do you think that?
I think, first of all, it fits the pattern a little bit more, because they always have the only exception, the only time they showed something at E3 was with, made the reveal was with Arkham VR, and that was at Sony because it was a Sony exclusive.
Yeah.
And so the reason that I think that they show their games a little bit early is to increase the amount of viewership, because if you show something, you announce something at E3, it kind of gets lost in the wave of all the new games getting announced. Like, I think the Microsoft conference showed 50 games or something last year, maybe 100. I don't remember what it was. It was like a huge amount for a conference. And so not a single game was really like the highlight because there were so many. So I think it works in their favor a lot to show something in May where there's really no other announcements taking place. So it gets the spotlight, and then at E3, everyone goes into it already with that hype for the new Batman game, and then they show gameplay. My thing with the whole May deal is that Andrew Reiner over at Game Informer, that's how they've always announced their games, is through Game Informer. He doesn't think a Batman game exists, and so that's a little like off-putting, I think, and also just that we didn't start seeing stuff in April is also a little bit weird. But I think if they're going to show something, it's more likely to be in May than E3, but I think E3 is still a possibility.
Now, here's what I'll say about that, Jake. I was thinking about that. And think about it this way. From WB Games Montreal's perspective, they've had their last several games leaked thoroughly.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, is like, if you guys remember the Damian Wayne Batman game, that wasn't like a leak that I brought to YouTube. At that point, Jason Schreier was also talking about it, and like everybody else in the industry already knew about the game. They were talking about it on there was so much discussion about the game before it was even announced. It was just like, what's the point of even not just coming out and confirming it, right? And we now know that reason is because the game was canceled and they didn't have, it wasn't ever meant to be. But here's the thing, is that they've had their Suicide Squad game leaked. They've had this new Damian Wayne Batman game leaked. They really haven't had good luck with that, with keeping things a secret. And I think that they have a totally different way that they're going about privacy, keeping things under lock. And I think that that's why people in the industry don't know like they do in other games. And this is not to say that other studios don't have great privacy and security policies, but WB Montreal has just been down that route so many times. They had this huge surprise shocker game of a Damian Wayne Batman video game spoiled, that they're really, I think, probably battening down the hatches on that stuff. And I really don't know if any industry guy has the ability to know this. Now, here's the thing, is that Ali, who I was talking to, he knows what the Rocksteady game is, and so does Jason Schreier, but ironically enough, none of them know what either two of the DC games are. Now, let me make something clear to everybody watching. We do know that WB Games Montreal is making 2 video games. Mm-hmm. The way that we know this is because one of the developers said, I was switched from Project A to Project B, right? So, if you remember, I think Osama tweeted that, and Bobby did too, right?
Yeah, and Osama on the podcast that he went on, I know for a fact that he said that this first game is a DC game, and he said it looks really good. And I believe he said that the second game was also a DC game. Don't quote me on that one. I may be wrong. I remember something like that. And also, just the Court of Owls stuff, I think it means it's a Batman game. And I think that you definitely have a point of why Andrew Reiner wouldn't know. He was suggesting, maybe the Owls are a tease to the Harry Potter thing, and maybe it's like a dual studio effort. I do not see that being the case at all, because even if you go to their website, still, it's very superhero themed. It's clear that they're working on something DC related. They're not helping with the Harry Potter game. I can basically confirm that one.
Yeah. And I think in their job listings, they still post that we're making 2 DC games 2 video games to expand the DC games universe or something to that effect. So exactly. We do know that both of these games are still DC games. And for that second one, it's going to be really difficult to know what it is or what have you. Here's the thing that I'll say about it, though. I think that, it is a little bit off-putting, like you said, that there has not been any industry insider that has come out and said, and I do think it's a little bit weird that every guy and girl in the industry knows that this is Rocksteady, what they're making. And of course, I'm a little bit skeptical of this, because Jason Schreier comes out, as he always does, he's like, well, I have all the secrets and the information, but I'm just not going to tell you guys, because you guys aren't cool enough to know. And then we're like, okay, he's like that kid, I've said this analogy a couple times, but he's like that kid on the playground in kindergarten. He's like, I know a secret about Susie. And we're like, okay, what is it? And then he's like, I can't tell you, it's just too
I respect Susie too much. I won't.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you because Susie doesn't want you to know, but I know it, but you can't. And
but I'll tell you this other secret about Jordan.
Exactly, about some game we don't care about. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, also, this is exactly my impression of him is spot on, if I would just say so myself.
Oh, I agree.
This is his nasally voice. Okay, anyway. Yeah. So, Jason Schreier, he does know shit. I'll give him that. He knows things that's going on in the industry. However, I'm not so sure. And I came out and I was like, well, I've heard things that it's a Teen Titans game, not like official shit. Jason Schreier does love me. You better believe it. I mean, he has me blocked, but he loves me. Anyway, he's come out and he's like, well, it's not a Teen Titans game. So we're like, okay, what is it? And he's like, well, I can't tell you that, of course. So what was he saying? He said, Jason Schreier said something to the effect of like, it's something that people haven't speculated on a lot.
Yeah, so from what I've heard, Rocksteady themselves have said it's not Superman, it's not Batman, it's not Ninja Turtles. And then every insider that's talked about it has been like, yeah, it's not Justice League, or yeah, it's not something that you're expecting. So I don't think it's going to be something super mainstream like The Flash or anything like that, but I also feel like it has to be some kind of property that people know. Like,
Right.
so I do think Titans could be realistic, and the reason is because it's led by Robin, and realistically, it could be a follow-up to Batman Arkham Knight, because you could have Tim Drake or Dick Grayson assemble the Titans within the Arkhamverse. I also think it could be Green Lantern. My issue with Green Lantern is that the game would have to be so massive on just a huge scale, and Titans would have to be bigger than the Arkham games as well. But I think that Titans is more realistic than Justice League, and everyone suggests, well, they could do Justice League, but anytime I say, well, maybe it's Superman or Titans, well, back when I used to say it was Superman, everyone's like, oh, those characters are too big, which is funny because Titans is smaller than Justice League.
Right. Also, not to interrupt you, but huge shout out to Thomas R. He just donated a hot $2 donation. Hey man, huge fan of the channel. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, man. And also, if you guys have any opinions or thoughts, if you donate, that's the best way to. We'll read your thoughts out here and comment on those. So, no, you're right. Is that comment that we can't make a Justice League game, but we can make this? It's like, well, both of them are possible, but the easiest one to do is a Teen Titans game first. But anyway, Jason Schreier, if I'm being honest, this is totally me putting my ego aside and my quarrels with him aside. Also, just to be clear, I do not hate Jason Schreier. Jason Schreier does hate me. I can tell you that, because he even DM'd me before you blocked me and like, you are trying to like ruin my career, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what? Are you fucking serious? I literally just said I was testing him. I will say that. I will totally admit that, because he's like, well, I know everything, but I'm not going to tell anybody.
His demeanor was so bad on that, though.
He's so pretentious. He's so pretentious. And by the way, what's funny is that nobody in the industry likes him. Why? Because he leaks all of their games, but then he pretends that he doesn't. And he's like, well, I really care about the game industry. And
he's been blacklisted from so many companies because they're like, dude, you spoil everything.
Yep. And people wonder why no one likes him in the industry, but it's fine. Some people do have a weird thing for him. Like, he won't spoil the games of his like really close friends. Yeah. But if you just like don't suck him off hard enough, then he will spoil your shit. But anyway.
Well, to go back to one thing that you said, I actually have two things. So one is people in the comments are saying maybe the Rocksteady game is Aquaman or something. I just want to say I don't think so, because it looks like they're working on a team superhero game. If you go and look at the jobs that they're hiring for a lot of multiplayer people. So I don't think it's going to be Aquaman. I do think it'll be a team game. But that was kind of a segue. So back to when you said that no one really knows what WB Montreal is working on. There was actually an interview with Jason Schreier after they rebooted the Damian Wayne game. It was Greg Miller, and he was asking him, what's the Rocksteady game? And he's like, oh, I can't tell you. But then Greg Miller was like, what about WB Montreal? And Jason Schreier said something to the effect of, oh, it's a reboot from what they were doing, but it's still Batman. So if he's to be believed, they're still doing Batman.
No, and to be fair, like I don't have any speculation or any reason to believe that it's not Batman. And if anything, if we look at it from their perspective, it's within their best interest to do Batman. From the fans' perspective, I didn't title this video Aquaman Reveal Imminent. It said Batman game. So like, fans are excited about Batman. WB is excited about Batman because that's the the money language of that franchise, right? So it's a mutually productive and fruitful sort of endeavor for them.
Yeah, and if you look at if you look at the amount of time we've waited, and I mentioned this in my video as well, but like, for example, with BioShock, that's a completely separate type of game. Or Prince of Persia, like, fans of those franchises are okay to wait for quite a while between games. With DC, it's kind of different. And with Marvel games as well, it's getting to that point where people are kind of expecting somewhat consistent games coming out. So the fact that we've waited 4 years after biannual games from Arkham, I think if they came out with like some completely separate character like Superman or Aquaman, it probably wouldn't sell as well as if they come out with some form of Arkham game or even just a Batman game, and then have like some build up towards a Superman game or a Titans game within that this next Batman game, and then you can leech off into other characters.
And this is the thing that frustrates me so much, is that what you just spoke about right there is a broader DC video games universe, right? It's like this expansive, video game sort of universe in the DC realm, and unfortunately, it doesn't appear that WB is really prioritizing that. It's not to say that they're not beginning to now, but they haven't in the past. And the reason that we know this is because they don't announce when any game is canceled, and they don't have any real priority to make games come out quickly. How do we know this as well? Look at WB Games Montreal. They've had 2-3 games canceled, whatever it's been, and instead of coming forth and, putting everybody to make one game, to have that game come out as quickly as possible, they still take their time and work on 2 separate projects. This is a studio of 400 people. If they have all 400 people work on one game, they could have it done easily, like an entire game in 18 months, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But instead what they choose to do is split off and have 2 games, which shows that it is not a time crunch for them. It's just like... And listen, I don't know about game development. I don't know if it would be like too many cooks in the kitchen to make a game with 400 people. I don't know.
It would depend on the game.
Of course.
I've done like some of the indie projects I've been working on. If I had like multiple people working on it, it would be too much. But if they're talking about like the scale of the games that they're talking about, like remember some of the rumors for the Damian Wayne game, how big that one was going to be. I think absolutely 400 people would be a huge help to that game.
And kind of an aside to that, I wonder what you think about if you wish that we got that game. And just for a reminder for everybody, we had some preliminary information about what the game was, not anything in depth. We know that it involved the Bat Bike and that it was going to be Damian Wayne. It seemed that it was going to be a sequel to Arkham Knight, although we actually never got anything concrete that was going to be the case. Of course, none of this is fully concrete, like none of this was press release stuff, but we did have some information that was more reliable and authentic than others. But anyway, this game was basically going to start, Damian Wayne, and it was going to have some really unique villains, be Batman to Beyond-like. I know GothCorp from the pictures of the map, it was like GothCorp, which is Mr. Freeze's corporation, and then Wayne Tower looked really dilapidated. It was a very apocalyptic, sort of dreary picture of Gotham. I just wonder, Jake, do you wish that we got that game instead of it being canceled, or do you almost feel like it's better to maintain the sort of integrity of the Arkham brand for that game to be canceled?
So I personally think the game sounded very interesting, so I would have been interested to see what it was, and I mean, it would have been new content, so there is that. But with that being said, I think that personally I'm more interested in seeing some sequels to Arkham Origins. I know that there's a lot of people who disagree with that, but I'm more interested in seeing like the Arkham's take on like Two-Face, for example, like Harvey Dent to Two-Face. In terms of like a Batman Beyond based game, I don't necessarily want Damian Wayne to lead. I think Terry McGinnis would be a better choice, but also I don't feel like there's enough coverage between Arkham Knight to just throw in a game like 20 years later, because Arkham Knight's ending is so open-ended that it can be interpreted in so many ways that we almost need a game that takes place maybe a few months after Arkham Knight, or even like a decade after Arkham Knight, or something that stars Dick Grayson looking for Bruce, or something to set up that more futuristic version of Gotham. Because if we just jump into Batman Beyond, I feel like it's too big of a leap. So we almost would have needed a stepping stone between the two games.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's the thing, is that a Batman Arkham Origins sequel is actually a perfect stepping stone, not only into a Batman Beyond game, but also into Arkham Knight. It's the game that we should have gotten before we got Arkham Knight. Think about it this way. We never got to see the Jason Todd stuff until flashbacks in Arkham Knight, which totally spoiled the surprise, because the flashbacks were, like 3 seconds before the reveal. It's like, oh wow, this is, tricky to predict. But if they had done Arkham Origins 2, it would be a totally different story, because they could have not only done Jason Todd and done his background, and then it would actually be a surprise. You actually have a lot of different options. You can have Jason Todd, or it could have been a bunch of other people that they introduced in that game or in other games. And I always remember, too, it was really funny. How long have you been a fan of, like, the Arkham games and, like, watched stuff on YouTube, Jake?
Probably about 2010. I remember
wow. Okay.
Arkham Asylum, I didn't really notice when it first came out, just because it was smaller than the other ones. It didn't have that big name behind it yet.
Yeah.
I didn't play an Arkham game until late 2012 or sometime in 2013. I remember I actually played Asylum after City and Origins. So I remember I played City, Origins, then Asylum and Night after that.
Okay, so do you remember in 2015 there was all these crazy rumors? I remember some people said Penelope Young from Arkham Asylum was
Yeah.
going to be the Arkham Knight, and this
Yeah,
like the
well,
craziest stuff.
here's the thing. As I've thought about it, the Arkham Knight shouldn't have even been a thing because, like, no matter who was under the mask, I think it would have been kind of a poor reveal. I think they should have tied it more into Arkham City, had Damian Wayne be basically the figure of the Arkham Knight, so you don't try to hide his identity as the Arkham Knight or anything. It's just Damian Wayne. But then the Red Hood could have been in the game as well. But don't try to hide him either. Just have it be the Red Hood and Damian Wayne in the game. Like, I think that would have been fine.
Also, the thing that was really off-putting about Arkham Knight, not to dwell on the past too much, but like, what happened to Hugo Strange and like Warden Quincy Sharp and all that stuff? Like, they left so much of the Arkham lore behind for Arkham Knight. It feels like a totally different game, and from the previous two, and everything that they established in the Arkhamverse, they abandoned to try to get to the comic book stuff. That's the way it felt to me. Is like they tried to make a more mainstream game, and they abandoned the actual Arkham lore that they created. And when you look at Arkham Asylum City and Night, Arkham Knight looks like a mainstream kind of movie, I don't even know how to describe it. It just feels like more of a mainstream piece of work that you could maybe see in a live action movie. Whereas Asylum and City had its own lore, right?
Yeah, well, and I feel like it's just the weakest story because even Origins, like Salvage and I were talking about this a little bit on Twitter, and he talked about how he had a lot of issues with the origin story, with the reveal of how Black Mask was actually the Joker. And for me personally, I was okay with like Troy Baker's take on Joker. I thought it was kind of a breath of fresh air because the story was getting a little bit fetch quest heavy and kind of filler. But with Arkham Knight, my problem is that the lore doesn't make sense in that game. Like everything with the Joker blood, throwing in the Batman, like the Joker blood makes zero sense at all, and it just really stinks because Paul Dini wrote masterpieces with Asylum and City, and then Origins had a decent story as well. Yep. So the fact that Arkham Knight, yes, it had good gameplay, yes, the graphics were good. I didn't like the map as much as City personally, but like the story was just so badly written, and I think we can even tie this a little bit going forward. I think it's hard because either they're gonna just completely reboot the Batman games, which I personally hope they don't do. I think that would kind of be a little bit of a waste. There's still stuff you can do in the Arkhamverse, but the problem with that is that then you're kind of either going to need to do a soft reboot where you just don't acknowledge a lot of the stuff from Arkham Knight, or like kind of secretly retcon it, or you're going to have to do a lot of damage control, and there'd be a ton of explaining to do if you're going to try and tie a game into Arkham Knight.
Right. Oh, also, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Samuel for donating is that pounds or euros? I think that's pounds, British pounds. Anyway, thank you for donating £3. I really appreciate it, dude. So here's my thoughts on this. I totally agree with you. And the problem is that maybe they might have a little bit they probably had some challenges thinking about where they could go forward with the Batman Arkham games. And the way to avoid the entire problem of what you're talking about is just to jump 30 years in the future and be like, oh, Batman's son. And like, it's just a good way to get away from everything, and then everything in the past doesn't really have to make sense, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, is that it's not that they can't do it, incorporate it into the Arkhamverse. The problem is that you just have to acknowledge that the lore is a little bit messed up. You have to think about the fact that like the comics really ruined the Arkhamverse more than anything else. And whether you like it or not, the comics are canon to the Batman Arkham games. And there are things in the Batman Arkham Knight prequel comics that literally directly contradict the game itself.
Well, I think if they want to continue with the Arkham games, they have to do two things. One is say the comics are no longer canon, sort of like what Star Wars did with some of their lore and stuff. You just say, yep, the comics are not canon to the games. And also, I say just never bring up the Joker blood ever again. Never make that a subplot. You can bring back the Titan formula in some way. Never talk about Joker blood. You can do the Nightfall. Like, I think actually it'd be very beneficial if they do end up doing an Arkham Knight sequel. Like, sort of show us the payoff of the Nightfall protocol. Kind of explain it more to us. But Joker blood, no. Just leave that buried.
Yes, I agree. There's a lot of things that they should be leaving in the past. But like I said, the lore of Asylum and City is just so great. You know, they created so many characters, and it kind of went to the wayside in Arkham Knight. Like, they don't have original characters in that game.
Yeah, well, I remember reading like all the bios and all the like stories and stuff in City, like when you could collect stuff and get like little stories and stuff. I remember reading all of them because I just thought the world was so interesting, and I loved all the side quests. With Arkham Knight, I don't think I even went into the character bios menu. Like I was just so uninterested in seeing anyone.
So that's what I would really like to see, is almost the return to the genuine roots of what the Arkham games are. And that is something that's not necessarily exceedingly mainstream. It's not trying to appeal to a mainstream audience. It really is deeply like comic booky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Asylum and City really feel that way. It feels like a 6-issue comic book series. And, Arkham Knight really didn't feel that way to me. But this is not to say that Arkham Knight is horrible, and I don't want to, crap on it too much. But it is a little bit of a challenge for WB Montreal. You want to make a Batman game. You want it to be in the universe of the Batman game you already created. And just because Rocksteady kind of messed some things up with the finale doesn't mean that you want to abandon your game that you made, right? So what do?
Yeah.
You can either do a sequel to Arkham Origins, or you can do something Batman Beyond, like kind of similar to the Damian Wayne stuff. Now, here's the thing, is that when Jason Schreier was talking about this, he said that it's a reboot, it's still a Batman video game, but we don't know the extent to what it's rebooted. So I think it really is one of those two options. It's either going to be a distant future game where you don't mess with the Arkham Knight ending, but then I think about it more, and it's impossible to do that, because in just having Batman there, you are addressing right? You are still sort of addressing that Arkham Knight ending of what happened with the Nightfall Protocol, what is Batman doing, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to go about it from their perspective. And I'm just curious, like, if you were in their shoes, what would you do? And then the second part of the question is, what do you think they're going to do? Do you think that they're going to try to do an Arkham Origins sequel, or do you think it's going to be something a little bit more abstract?
Yeah, so let me start off by answering the second part of your question. What I think they're going to do. I think personally it will probably be some kind of Arkham Origins sequel, and the reason is, when the Damian Wayne game got leaked so extensively, everyone was kind of not everyone, but there was a large group of the Arkham community that was like, ew, Damian Wayne, no way. And people seem to really hate that idea. And so I think that they'll probably do something a lot more safe. And I think that the safest game they could possibly make is Arkham Origins 2, or just reboot the franchise entirely and start with a fresh story, which I don't necessarily hope they do. I don't think it'd be terrible either. They could do something really good. But personally, what I would do is I'd first kind of do what I said, where I'd take all the comics out of continuity. I'd say the comics aren't part of it at all. And then I'd explore between Origins and Asylum. I'd turn Origins into its own trilogy. And then I would... I think that would actually help Arkham Knight a lot, because then you show Jason Todd and you show a lot of the events preceding Arkham Knight. You can clean up some of the continuity errors. And then after that, I think that they could do sort of a sequel trilogy as well. I think that they could do some Damian Wayne or Terry McGinnis games. But personally, I'm most interested in seeing sort of that gap between Origins and Asylum. And the reason why, that's when Batman was operating with the Bat family. That's when some of the most interesting stories were taking place. Like, you could take a lot of inspiration from The Long Halloween, Dark Victory, and stuff like that. A Death in the Family.
Yeah, definitely. Liquid K1D, thanks for the $2 donation. He says, if there's no May reveal, we should be worried. And Jake, I gotta say, I agree with Liquid there. I'll extend it to June. If we don't get a reveal by June, the game's not coming out in 2019. Just because E3 is that kind of Joker card, like ace card that they could lay down. But I will say by June. So I agree with you, Liquid, for the most part. But I will give them till June. If it's nothing by June, I'm definitely a little bit worried about that. But here's the thing: is that there is still this possibility that that this game could be that futuristic Damian Wayne, Damian Wayne, it's not going to be Damian Wayne, but that futuristic Batman Beyond-esque game. And I think that would be a really interesting change for the Batman Arkham games. And if I'm being honest, I don't know if I have a preference for either one. An Arkham Origins sequel is going to be a little bit more familiar, and maybe a Batman Beyond game, Batman Beyond Arkham game, is exactly what the Arkham games need to be revived. And it would just be the perfect amount of newness and still using the Arkham games engine and everything like that. But just one thing I've noticed about the Batman Arkham games is that they are very similar in terms of their visuals. Not Asylum. Asylum is very aesthetically unique to the other games, but
For sure.
I think that a game that looks just like Arkham Origins 1, I think that really changing the aesthetic of the Arkham games would be a great move for them to do.
I agree. The thing for me is that my worry with doing sort of the Batman Beyond thing is that I feel like if they do that, they'll fall into the trap of focusing like solely on gameplay and trying to improve it for future rather than focusing on writing a really good story. And I think personally, I don't mind them doing a Beyond game at all. In fact, I think it's a great idea. But I feel like they should probably try to set some stuff up with an Origin sequel. And maybe they could even alternate, like they do a Beyond game, then a Arkham Origin sequel or something like that. I don't know. Personally, it's just I want the game to sort of scale back from what Arkham Knight was to some degree, while also pushing the series forward in terms of gameplay. So like, what I mean by that is I'd rather get the quality of like Arkham City. Like if we were to get a new Batman game and I could choose between having gameplay that was similar to Cities, but have it be a really good quality story, I'd prefer that over really great quantity of gameplay and a weak story like Arkham Knight.
Yeah, John Joe says we are getting a Batman Beyond game. Period. What makes you so sure about that? I'm not so convinced. And
yeah, I don't really. I feel like that is less likely after the backlash after the whole Damian Wayne thing. Personally,
yeah, definitely. So one thing I want to talk about is just an interesting conversation point is for this other DC game that WB Montreal's doing. Do you have any sort of preliminary expectations or guesses of what it could be? And what might be easier to guess on is what is it not? You think?
I don't think it's going to be anything that won't sell really well. So I don't think it's going to be Green Arrow or Nightwing or anything like that everyone always says they want. Red Hood. Nope, it's not going to be something like that. It's definitely going to be because they've said it's a different project or like a new IP or something like that. So it's possible that it could still be a Batman game with a different character. So I guess maybe it could be the Batman Beyond based game. That's not necessarily likely though. I could see them branching off and doing other characters. So I don't think it's going to be Green Arrow, Red Hood. I could see it being Wonder Woman, Superman, or any of those really, maybe even Aquaman, just some of those really popular films recently that have passed a lot of money at the box office. I think it'll be just one of the really big DC characters right now.
I'm trying to think of when we were getting information about that project happening. I think it was around the time Aquaman came out. And it could have been that they were waiting to see the success, and it was obviously $1 billion huge hit. Yeah. And Aquaman's already a very popular character. He's one of the original 7 actually one of the original 5 on the Justice League. For those of you who don't know, a little bit of fun fact history there. Batman was not one of the original Justice League members, whereas Aquaman was, interestingly. But in any case, he's a very popular, iconic DC character, and he's now a mainstream, icon as well. So I think that Aquaman is very likely. Your theory is really interesting to me. Is maybe they're making 2 Batman games, and they're dividing and conquering on 2 different Batman titles. Maybe they're. I don't think that they would be working on Arkham Origins 2 and Arkham Origins 3 at the same time. That just wouldn't make any sense. But they could be doing the Batman Beyond game and the Arkham Origins 2 game at the same time.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a little bit puzzling why. I agree what you're saying about it being safe. Here's why I think that. WB Montreal is a big studio. They have 400 employees, and this is just the real business talk of it. They're a big studio that have 400 employees. This studio costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to operate every year. And for every year that they don't publish a game is another year that WB is in the red on that studio. Okay? So they really have an interest right now to say, okay, you guys are a very creative bunch. Suicide Squad game, that's awesome. Damian Wayne Batman game, that's awesome. But it's a little bit out there. It's a little bit ambitious, and clearly it was too ambitious to actually publish. Yeah. But they probably are being told that they need to make sure that whatever games they're working on need to get published, just because their past few have been canceled, and it was just so expensive to the studio to cancel them. So they really have an incentive to make sure that this game will be released. And the way that you do that is by sort of, working with what is a successful formula. And in this case, it is the Batman Arkham games. It is a formula that is steadfast and foolproof, and it will work. And Arkham Origins 2 will work. In no universe does it not sell well. In no universe does the game totally suck. Because you at least have the basic fundamentals of what a good game is. Good gameplay and relatively decent voice acting and story, right?
Yeah, well, and you look at sort of the Arkham community as it is right now, and I know that when Arkham Origins first came out, it was kind of divisive, like, oh, it's from a different studio, and it's a prequel. But after Arkham Knight, it's been interesting to watch the community, because I see so many people now ranking it as number one, and it's gained like this really massive cult following. Like, there's a whole movement to get it remastered. Everyone wants a remaster, which I don't really understand why, because the remasters for Asylum and City were horrible. But I've just seen Arkham Origins get this huge support behind it, and the game that everyone says they want, they're like, oh, we want more dual play with the Bat family.
Yeah.
That would be perfect for an Origins sequel.
No, that's funny. I mean, Batman Return to Arkham is so fucking shit. I don't care what anyone says. If you think it's good, it is horrible. You
can already play the Return to Arkham Origins. You just put it in your Xbox One, turn the brightness up to 100, and slow down the frame rate as much as you can.
Slow down, yeah, cut the frame rate in half. Literally, The game is worse than Arkham Asylum and City. And I said this, I made this video, if you remember, a long time, several years ago, and people came out and they were like, no, it's well, it's great, stop being a hater, blah, 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 blah. And I literally did a side-by-side comparison of the trailer and the new game, and WB copyright, they copyright striked me, and I was like, yeah, that's everything you need to know right there. That they copyright striked me on doing a side-by-side comparison of the same game that they're remastering. And the reason why is because the video exposed that the remaster is actually worse. The graphics aren't exponentially worse. The problem is that the game lags like a bitch.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It skips around. Do you have it for PS4?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my god, it's horrible.
It's really bad.
Arkham Asylum is so bad on it. It literally you just skip around and it's just so laggy. It is absolutely terrible.
The problem was that, because I thought that it was going to be a quality remaster when they were like, oh, we're porting it from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4. And I was like, oh, that's really good, because that, Unreal 4 is a much better engine, I think. The problem is that the Arkham games are built in a specific engine, a modified engine of Unreal 3, so it was built specifically for Unreal 3, so just porting it over doesn't work. That messes up the hair, the lighting, everything gets messed up, and it doesn't seem like Virtuous was very interested in fixing any of it, which I thought was weird. But also, I just realized this isn't the first time that WB Montreal has sort of failed with some kind of project, and what I mean by that is back with Arkham Origins, it was actually intended to be a cross-platform release, because that's right when the Xbox One and PS4 were coming out. And you can actually look this up, but yeah, it was supposed to be a cross-platform release, so it was supposed to come out on Xbox One and PS4 as well as the 360 and PS3. And there's some of the promotional art that shows Batman and Deathstroke fighting, or there's one of Batman swinging across the GCPD, and it looks really crisp and good.
Uh-huh.
And what I've heard is that that's actually the build of the next-gen version of the game. And so it's interesting because I guess halfway through or something, they came out and were like, yeah, the next-gen stuff isn't going to work. We're just going to focus on making the best current-gen experience that we possibly can. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. I just remembered that as we were talking here.
I'm sorry, I was a little confused about what you're saying. The sample of what now is the next gen sample?
So there were some promotional images.
Yeah.
Here, I'll send one over really quick, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were these images that you could look, and it looked like they were from gameplay, but they look like remaster images almost, because they look so much better. So I assume that they must have been pre-rendered or something, but apparently that's not the case. Here
okay, I got you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I literally, when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. But then you start putting it side to side, and you forget how old these games truly were. And it's not any insult to Arkham Origins. The game literally, or Asylum, the game literally came out in 2009. I mean, so...
The thing that really bugs me about remasters is that they're not hard to make at all. They're
Nope.
actually quite easy. Hang on. Yeah, but remasters, like, literally, if I put a game in Unreal Engine 4, you can retexture stuff. And it's super easy. You literally drag and drop the material on the in-game object. So, like, if they'd have just updated the materials used in Arkham Asylum, it would have made it look infinitely better.
Right. And it's really a shame that they didn't work on that and really put the time into it. And rebuilding the game from the ground up is obviously not an option, but there's so many things that they could have done. It was just a very lazy thing to do. And it'd be one thing if they actually just maintained the quality of the games, but to come out and say that it's a remaster is such a joke. I mean, that was it's honestly like false advertising. Even if they just did a copy and paste of the game, which is what they did, they should just say, like, it's this game on PS4, which is exactly what it was, with no improvements, really. But anyway, I just think it's a little bit odd that they did make that remaster, and it seemed to me as though they're insinuating that the Arkham games are continuing, which we know that they are, but it's just... They clearly didn't anticipate these games to be canceled. Like, something catastrophic happened. And there's a few theories that I have with the Damian Wayne Batman game. The first of which is that it was a huge surprise. They wanted it to be. And it was spoiled. And they also saw some negative feedback that they maybe weren't expecting. It's one thing if you come out and you have a trailer and you surprise everybody. It's another thing when you hear leaks and people know that they don't know that it's necessarily happening, so they're more likely to give their honest opinion. And I think a lot of people really shat on the idea of it before it even came out, and that really scared WB Montreal. And they might have said it might be better to stop while we're ahead if this is something that so many fans think we've been the wrong direction on. The main comment that I saw in the years that I covered that game was, just do Terry McGinnis, just do Terry McGinnis, just do actual Batman Beyond. And they might have said, well, maybe we should have, right? And I think that that's part of the consideration of why they canceled it. And with the Suicide Squad game, evidently just nothing worked with it. That's something different entirely. But I've got to think that something about the feedback from the leaks maybe had some role in leading to that game's rebooting.
It could easily be both. What could have happened is maybe the Damian Wayne game wasn't running very well or something. And then as leaks are coming out and people are saying, oh, this looks terrible, or I don't want this game or whatever, it's like they probably look at the project and are like, do we really want to spend another year trying to fix this and patch it up to be playable and really good while people are already hating on it? Or do we just want to restart fresh with a project that we know we can do that's safer, that we can use some of these assets for, but that we know people will like and that we know that we can make without any issues?
Right. I love the Batman Arkham games. I love WB games. I love the people at WB Games Montreal. They're really great people. Literally, all of them that I've talked to, they're so nice. And I don't want
anyone so interactive with the community too.
They are, and I don't want anyone to think that holy shit, a $15 donation, Australian dollars, of course, but that's real dollars. Thank you, Mushroom Snow Productions, for $15, dude. You're the best. I really, really appreciate it, man. Going off of that, he said, "Remember, Kobe, to always wear protection." Okay, thank you. Yeah. That's an important reminder. What would I do without you? No, but yeah. In case you don't know, there's a lot of fan accounts out there. Slickmoff. There's so many. There's like Slickmoff brush teeth. Kobe use condoms.
Wash hands.
Wash hands. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, that one's good.
But no offense to Slickmoff wear protection. But anyway, going back into this, a little bit of an aside from the content of the stream here, I really do love all those guys and girls at WB Games Montreal. They're so nice. They're very hardworking. They care about the fans. So my quarrels are not with them, just to be clear. They're not with
not
WB
at
Games
all.
Montreal.
It's clear that they want to show us the game. Like, if you read their tweets, they want this game to go public, and they're actually, I think most of them are probably more frustrated than we are with the fact that they haven't been able to publish a game yet. I'm honestly more annoyed with the PR from the overarching Warner Brothers games company, because, like, you look at the Hitman 2 reveal, for example, and things like that, and it's just more the way that they've teased fans. And it's not WB Montreal, but the overarching parent company. They really have been teasing and using the fans' desire for a new Batman game to get views on projects that people are just completely uninterested in. So that's where my issues are.
With using which projects to get attention? Oh, are you talking like the Hitman reveal? Yeah.
Yeah, like or even Lego stuff. They'll be like, "Oh, we have a big secret reveal that's gonna be streamed on this day."
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, is it Batman, Superman?" And then it's like, maybe, and like they get really coy and act like, "Oh, it could be," and then we watch and it's like, no, it's not what any of us wanted.
Yeah, that's so annoying. And I think I told you this one time, but like WB. This is where my problems lie, is more with the WB marketing and not the WB Games Montreal people. So
Exactly.
I want to be clear with that. But the WB people do the same thing. Like, there's this one guy that I talked to in PR at WB. He emails me. He's like, hey, we know that you like Batman and stuff. We have Lego Supervillains 2 here, and we really think that you would enjoy it. And I'm just like, what? And like, if you reach out to them about anything in the DC Games brand, they're like, well, we can't comment on that. But here's like Lego Villains Superhero 2, and I'm just like, no, thank you. Hold that. It's just, there might be a little bit of I don't even know if they know about us, to be honest. Like, I don't even know if there's people that are really anticipating these Batman games. Do they have people that are aware that there's entire forms of conspiracy theories and YouTubers and nerds like myself that
they have to know, just because of how many there are. It's like, I mean, people will directly tweet at Warner Brothers Games, for example, so I'm sure that they know, and I feel like that's honestly the reason why they don't just say Hitman 2 reveal. It's they say it's a secret reveal because they knew people were waiting for Mortal Kombat at that time, and they knew people were waiting for a new DC game. So I'm sure that they know, and I think that they try to use that to their advantage, but really it ends up being just a big fault, because then the fans get more and more annoyed with them. Because if they were more open, and with people like Jason Schreier out there, I think it's maybe time to stop being so secretive with game reveals and just kind of do what they do with movies and be like, hey, we're going into production with this game. Just so that people are aware and so that there's a little bit more transparency. I don't know. I just think that Warner Brothers PR is not very good. I don't think it's the fault of Rocksteady or WB Games Montreal at all, but I think that the PR over at Warner Brothers, they're aware that people want a new Batman game, and they're just being very obnoxious about it in the way that they're hiding it.
No, and that's the thing that I want to make very clear to Patrick Redding, Osama Dorius, like everyone at WB Games Montreal, is that the only people that I've had any contact with at the studio are game developers. Game developers, it's not their job to be being community managers, and unfortunately I feel like they have been thrust into that position because I'm not aware of any community manager at WB Games Montreal. I'm not aware of any community manager of the WB Games community more broadly. So the problem is that all of us fans are spamming these game devs that work like, busy weeks. They have long hours, and they get home to all of us nerds tweeting them asking for updates, and that's not their job. Like, that is what WB Games more broadly and the PR and marketing department should be doing.
Exactly.
And for whatever reason, it's not happening. And look, games get canceled. It happens all the time. It's not their fault that the game was canceled. If anything, I really respect that they are doing quality control. They're saying, well, this game might not be exactly what we want it to be. Let's just try again, make something different that we're more passionate about, et cetera, et cetera. My only problem is that the WB marketing department hasn't kind of kept us in the loop. They haven't said, well, we're still making these two DC games. Even if they just said that, even if they just come out and say, sorry for the wait, fans, we're still working on two DC games. And by the way, a little bit of a surprise for you, Rocksteady is also making a DC game. So we've got 3 coming for you. As soon as we have something, we'll come out. Just that announcement alone would go so far.
They don't even have to say like that it's a DC game. Literally, if one of the fans was like, "Hey, where's the next DC game?" Even if they just said like, "Have patience, we're working on it," or like something like, they don't even have to directly answer. Just any kind of hint that lets us know. Like they're just so I don't know, weird about not wanting to say anything whatsoever. It doesn't seem like it would hurt. Like if someone's like, are there still DC games being made? I don't think it would hurt for them to be like, yeah, we're still in the process of making them. No, nothing yet. We don't have anything yet.
Exactly. And for whatever reason, it's just not... They've got to be very, very cryptic about it, and I understand. Yeah. The only thing that they've said is that they're making DC games, and it's just a little bit frustrating that they don't feel any obligation to keep us informed, because like you said, that wasn't 2015 when they said they're making 2 DC games. It's 2019. That was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, it's 3.5 years.
Exactly. And to not even say that, we're still working on these games, hang in there, etc. It's a little bit frustrating. I wish that they cared about maintaining the community and making sure that everyone's still sticking around and everyone's still anticipating the game and everything like that. DT says, is the worst kept secret that Rocksteady is working on a DC game? LOL. Yeah, it's definitely not a secret. As I said, Jason Schreier and other industry people have already come forth and said that it is a DC game. To me, everyone's pointing out that it's something that we're not going to be able to guess. So it's like, well, why even guess? If everyone's saying it's weird or not typical, it's not Justice League, it's not Superman, if it's none of the things that come to our head, there's no point in even guessing, honestly.
Yeah.
And the thing that's different about Rocksteady versus WB Montreal is that Rocksteady has the status to be able to make whatever game they want in the DC universe. Mm-hmm. So if you remember, Jake, 30 minutes ago, we were just talking about how WB Montreal is going to be working on a more mainstream title that is reliably successful. Rocksteady has earned the creative freedom to make whatever they want. So they could actually be making Green Arrow. They could be making Green Lantern.
Absolutely.
And that's something that is pretty likely.
And actually, that kind of says something about WB Games also, that they were going to allow Rocksteady to do some weird out there DC game, and they were also going to allow WB Games Montreal to do some weird out there Damian Wayne game. That seems really weird that they wouldn't tell at least one of the studios no, you have to make another Batman, or you have to do Superman, or something that's definitely going to sell well. Because if they're working on Green Arrow, it'll sell, but it's not going to sell as good as Arkham Knight, for example. And if you have Damian Wayne, that's a big risk. It'll sell well, but not necessarily as good as the other ones.
Yeah. The PlayStation Boy says, for the past 2 years, Marvel has been killing DC. And honestly, I have to agree. Let's go down the list, right? Animated movies, we have Into the Spider-Verse, which is something that normally DC's been very good at. And now we look at Batman Hush, the animated movie.
Yeah,
Salvage has made great videos about that. It looks absolutely terrible. It's like there's one graphic artist on the whole project. It looks absolutely terrible. It's not.
Yeah, and even the ones like The Killing Joke, you have Bruce Timm in there putting in his weird fetish fan fiction stuff.
Yep.
Same with Batman and Harley Quinn. I agree that Marvel's doing better than DC in a lot of regards. I will say that DC is definitely catching up with films. I think Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam have all been really great. So they're kind of catching up in that regard. But and if they started doing games again, I think that they could remain at least tied with the Spider-Man game, for example. I've noticed a lot of people who now actually think the Spider-Man game is very overrated, which is an interesting contrast when it first came out and everyone's like, oh, it's better than Arkham. But now it's almost going backwards where everyone's like, it's kind of overrated compared to Arkham. So I think if WB hurried and got on top of making DC games, then they could have a case to remain on top there. But otherwise, we're going to be getting the Avengers project. It looks like, I think Evan Flarka talked about how Spider-Man 2 looks like it's already in production over at Insomniac.
Yeah.
So if we get something at E3, like a 30-second teaser or something for Spider-Man 2, and then the Avengers project starts getting traction as well, yeah, DC is going to be they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
And if DC doesn't have an announcement by E3, that's really troublesome.
They are going to
too.
Be so
And then the thing is that Insomniac is 2/3 of the way through creating their trilogy before DC can even get out another game after Arkham Knight, which many people viewed as sort of the turning point or sort of the end point of that universe. So the thing is that DC needs to be working towards what do they call it in the Marvel Universe? Not Wave 1, Wave 2, but Phase 1. Yeah. So they need to be shifting towards Phase 2 of the DC video games brand. And if they're doing Arkham Origins 2, honestly, any game would be working that way. But also, Rocksteady's new IP is also going to be ushering in that new phase of DC games.
Yeah.
And Marvel is in their first phase, but their first phase is all really good. They're making an Avengers game. Insomniac from Spider-Man's really good. To comment on your point, in no universe is Spider-Man PS4 better than any of the Batman Arkham games, in my personal opinion.
Same.
I agree that it was overrated at the time. And here's the thing, is that a lot of fans were very excited for that game. There was a huge fan anticipation, maybe even bigger than the.
Well, that shows what happens when you announce a game that early. In contrast to what Warner Brothers Games does, because the same thing happened with Arkham Knight, if you'll remember. It seems the longer the announcement to the actual release, the hype builds and builds and builds to an almost like unrealistic degree. So with Spider-Man, like the first time I played it, I was really hyped, so I gave it like a 9 out of 10 or something, and then when I recently replayed it, I'm like, this is like 7 out of 10. Like the web swinging's good, but the story's really bloated and kind of repetitive.
Yep, it is.
But you look at the Marvel games, and I mean, dang it, what's his name? The director of it stings because I totally know this guy's name.
Bill Roseman?
No, it's the director of Insomniac. I'll think of it in just...
yeah. Sorry,
yeah, the guy, Brian Antahar.
Yep.
Yeah, he's already acknowledged. He was like, yeah, we want to really focus on the story for our next game, and we want it to be really, really good, even better than our previous game. So he already is kind of acknowledging that they need to evolve in storytelling. And the fact that they're already in production on Spider-Man 2, if they truly are, that's going to be crazy, because you look at it, if they're already in production, they already have the city built. Even if they add more city, and like if they add Queens or something, they already have all their city assets to build, more locations in a really short amount of time. And they have the web swinging down, so they can improve the gameplay, obviously. But mainly what they need to do is maybe they'll just make it like a winter setting or something. They have to make the cut scenes, the villain types and stuff. But we're looking at like maybe a 2-year development cycle rather than a 4-year development cycle like the first game was. So if DC doesn't hurry and do something, we're going to have the Avengers project, then probably immediately after that, Spider-Man 2. So they need to hurry and get going if they want to even compete with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing is that these are two arenas that DC has historically dominated in, the video game market and the animated movie market.
Yep.
I could even argue live-action movies prior to 2008.
Oh,
think about the
sure.
Superman and Batman movies. Way better. So the MCU is a recent phenomena. So before 2008, DC was like far and away, more superior, basically,
and
like
it
in
could
every realm.
go back that way. It could, like with a lot of the success of the recent films, and I know that there's a lot of people starting to get tired of the MCU and some of the formulaic stuff, and DC's kind of switching it up, so it could switch back, which would be really interesting because Marvel has been really prominent since I'd say about 2012 when the Avengers came out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but in terms of video games, Marvel has a clear plan. They're keeping fans informed, even with the Avengers project, even though we haven't seen anything in a long time. They still acknowledge that it exists and that they'll show stuff as soon as they're ready. With DC, we don't even have that.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight a great comment from the Arkham channel. He says, if WB Games Montreal's game is for current gen, it has to come out this year or early 2020 by the latest. And that's exactly
100%.
Right. Is that if they are working on this game on current gen consoles, they need to hurry and make sure that they announce by E3 so the game is ready by early 2020. Because otherwise you run into the problem where you have a complete game on last gen consoles. And that's a whole mess, because then you have to bring the entire game over to the new consoles, which is not necessarily the same because you have like dev kits for the new consoles. I'm not an expert on it by any means, but I think that would be a huge headache. And also, then you just made a game that isn't even optimizing the hardware potential of the new consoles, and it will not be as graphically and in terms of like gameplay, physics and all that kind of stuff. It just will not be up to speed with the other PS5 and Xbox 2 games.
Yeah, like the launch titles will be better, which it's interesting because there already are a lot of rumors for what the launch titles are going to be, and they're for very big games. Like Rocksteady, I know, already has the PS5 dev kit, so their game is almost 100% guaranteed to be a next-gen launch title, or just some, maybe the next year or something. But also BioShock, which is a huge franchise that has taken a hiatus. They're rumored to be a big launch title for the PS5. So it's like I said in my video, the longer they wait to make an announcement, that's scary, because that means the longer we're going to have to wait for the game to actually come out. So the fact that we've gone through April and we don't have an announcement, if we don't get something in May, like even if we get something at E3, I'd still be concerned that we're not going to see the game until sometime in 2020.
Yeah, and that's one of those things is like, even if we get the game in 2020, I'm fine with that. I just want to know, I just want to have that announcement so that, the excitement comes back to the Arkham community, because right now, I mean, we're talking to 200 people. That's a lot of people to talk about a franchise that is more or less dead. I mean, there's nothing
for the
franchise.
Stinks because whenever, like, I don't know. I just want confirmation because I'm tired of all the like negative Nancy YouTubers who, whenever like you, Salvage, or me make a video, they have to do some follow-up video of like why it's probably not happening, and
Yep.
like I just want something that can finally put a lot of those comments and stuff to rest.
No, I remember when I was given those pictures of the Damian Wayne Batman game, and I knew 100% they were real. So many people were telling me, of course, that, I mean, literally hundreds of people, they're like, this is fake, you have no sources in the industry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't. I have one, and this one is really good. But, I mean, like, people are saying, you're not an insider, you don't have shit. And, like, I never claimed that I was. But anyway, my point is like, when I saw pictures of the game, and I was like, okay, these are real, and all of these haters are going to be proven wrong when the shit comes out. And then they canceled it, so scratch that. And then I was like, fuck. Okay, but anyway, the thing is that I totally agree with you, is that there's going to be that time when the game comes out, and it's going to be like middle fingers out to all the haters that were like, no, they're not, they're doing the Arkham games, blah, 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 blah. And, of course, like, I don't know when that's going to happen or anything, but it's going to be a glorious feeling. And also, for whatever reason, a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of like shitting on other people's excitement. People comment all the time. They're like, stop making videos about a game that's not confirmed. And also, once again, I go back to like these games were confirmed in 2015, but that's a side note. People just love to be kind of negative about these things. They love to tell you that you're wrong and that we're not going to get anything, and there's never going to be another Batman game, there's never going to be another DC game, and it's probably not going to be until like 2027 whenever we get it and whatever. So, you know, on one hand, in 2016, I probably was a little bit too optimistic about when we would be getting it, but also, you know, I can't know for sure when games are going to be canceled or whatever.
Yeah.
I am really thrilled with the community that we have here on YouTube, with all of these thousands of people that love the Batman Arkham games, that love DC and love DC video games, that are excited to see.
Yeah, that's why it's funny when people tell you or me like, hey, if you don't like that, don't talk about it, or if you're like, stop talking about a new DC game because it's dead. It's like, well, look at how many people are like we have like 213 people just watching us like talk on Skype about about like a possibility of when we might see a game 4 years after we got the last installment. Like that. Yep. That's pretty significant.
It is, and the community and the fan base for these games is incredible, and it's just and here's the thing: is going back to what you said. It's important to consider what is the most effective route for this game. There is one route where you could do what The Last of Us does, what a lot of other huge franchise games do to build anticipation. Spider-Man PS4 is you announce the game a while before it comes out, and on one front that's painstaking and people will complain about it. But there's the other route where there's very little hype, which is the route of waiting until like 6 months before, and there's advantages to that. There is the advantage that as soon as you get the game, they hit the ground running with gameplay reveals the next month, and the month after that, more information, and it's like a huge sort of domino effect. But here's my my parting message, I think, is that it really, really would be excellent if WB Montreal can manage to get a reveal out in the next month or two. If we could just get a trailer by June, it would do so much for the Arkham community. It would do so much for these games, and it's okay for us to have to wait a little bit. I just think that the worst thing that they could do is continue to keep us in the dark, because people are getting a little flustered. People are getting a little bit frustrated, and from our perspective, look at it from the fans' perspective. The fans' perspective is, we played Arkham Knight in 2015. We love that game, and we kind of were not sure. We didn't have high hopes for whatever. We kind of acknowledged this is the end of the Batman Arkham games. And then they come out, what was it, 6 months later, roughly? They come out 6 months later and they say, we're making 2 DC games, and then we also assumed Rocksteady's probably making 1. So there's like 3 in development. This is what they said in 2015. Official press release from WB Games. And then you fast forward, and it's almost 4 years later, and we have not even a CGI trailer. And this is the thing that I talked about in my last video. I see people from the Avengers Project fans crying on Twitter. I mean, like, give me a break. You guys have a CGI trailer. That's like fucking luxury living compared to what we have. We have nothing. We just have like t-shirt pictures on Twitter. That's what we're going off of. They have like the good shit. They have a real CGI trailer. They have a community manager over at fucking Crystal Dynamics. They've got all that shit. And we're just like, I don't know. Maybe it'll be
Well, if you
2019.
told
I
me
don't
in
know.
2015, like you're gonna go 4 years without a new DC game, I would have been like, dude, you're crazy, because you looked at how well Arkham Knight sold. It was like, I don't remember, it was like 5 million copies or something within the first few months or something. Like it
Huge
sold
numbers,
really
yeah.
well. And so I was like, if you told me, yeah, you're gonna go 4 years before even have the possibility of seeing one, because we still don't even know. I mean, for all we know, 2019 could pass without any announcement. I think that'd be crazy, but it's possible because we don't know anything yet.
Yep.
And it, like, I would have thought that was insane just because of how successful Knight was.
Like, just think about what it would do for the Arkham community if Jeff Eleanor comes out and tweets tonight and he says, you will get a trailer, an announcement, and a reveal for our new DC game in the next 2 months, maybe even 3 months. Like, the anticipation and the hype would go crazy. It would be the main story of the whole week in the entire entertainment industry. Like, IGN would be picking it up. Literally everybody would be talking about this. And then the hype would be sky high leading up to that reveal. But instead their choice is like, and the way that the Batman Arkham games have done in the past is like a Game Informer reveal. And it's just like, I don't know if that's really the best, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Because Game Informer,
Probably not this time.
who reads that shit anyway? Like, nobody. We just want to see the... Oh, and do you remember the guy was so pissed that we were all looking forward to Batman? He says, every Game Informer cover reveal has been a disappointment besides BioShock 3. People just have unrealistic expectations for our game. And it's like, no, your Arkham Knight and Arkham City reveals were not disappointments. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just because you do, like, dumb shit, and you do, like...
And games, like what was the whole deal with, like, of course we're going to be disappointed if you're covering a game that comes out in, like, a few days with Mortal Kombat. Like, what was that?
I know, right? I know. And Mortal Kombat 11 it doesn't seem to have a lot of hype to me.
No.
I don't know why, but it just kind of doesn't.
Yeah, it's weird because it seemed like before we had an announcement, everyone wanted it. Everyone was talking about Mortal Kombat 11. Like, where is it? But now that we have it, people don't seem very interested.
Oh, that's exactly the situation with so many different games. What? I'm trying to think. Injustice 2 was kind of that way, if I'm being honest. Like there's something about their formula over there is not totally...
I mean, it's basically the same game every time, just with a different campaign and updated graphics. But I mean, the mechanics are exactly the same. They update finishers and stuff, but for the most part, it's the same game.
Yeah.
You're paying $60 for them to literally slap new paint on the same game.
John donates £5. Thank you. He says, "We out here like Oliver Twist. May I have anything, sir? Just anything. We're dying. LOL." No, you're right. It's just at this point, we just want anything. Even just a tweet. Even just a tweet that's like, you're gonna get something,
or an image with the Batman logo. Like
anything.
That's all they would have to do. Like even if Jeff Eleanor tweeted out like the Arkham logo with a winky face emoji or something, that would be like...
But if you think about it, they kind of have done this. Like, they've done the Court of Owls. They've done that several times. So, I mean, we know it's a Court of Owls Batman game. And now here's the really interesting thing, and this is really going down a rabbit hole that I don't know if we want to go down. But when I saw the pictures of the Damian Batman game, which has since been canceled, there was Court of Owls shit in there. So, like, I'm really wondering how much of a reboot even was this? Like, Jason Schreier says it was rebooted. Maybe all they're really changing is they're just making it like Bruce Wayne when he's older, but it's still going to be like Mr. Freeze, like, Goth Corp, dilapidated Gotham, Wayne Tower and destruction, weird villains like a blonde, whatchamacallit, I can't remember who was blonde. Oh fuck, I can't think of it. Remember?
Black Mask.
Black Mask. Yes. Female blonde Black Mask.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, that was a little weird. Maybe
that was my one thing. Like, honestly, if they're going to do some kind of game like that, they almost need to start at the roots and just not even have it be Arkham anymore. Like, if they want to do something that outlandish, it almost would have to be its own thing, I think.
No, that's fair. But now, here's the question. Why do you think that they're not doing this? Do you think it's... why are they not doing all the things that we just said? Why are they not even having a tease announcement? Why are they not... Is it because the game is really far away? Is it because WB, that's just not the way they market games? If I'm being honest, it seems like it's the latter. It seems like you look at Mortal Kombat, you look at the Arkham games, you look at every Lego games. They refuse to announce games more than like a year in advance. It has
only
to be 6
time
months or less.
it's even Arkham Knight. What was it? It was only it was just over a year, but the only reason was because the game got delayed.
Yep.
But the reason, so there's a few different things I could see going on right now, because I think it's really been a terrible move of them to not say anything at this point. I think other times it works, but this time it's just gone on for too long, and it's more annoying than cryptic. But one is that the game doesn't look good, and that would be my biggest concern. And I don't think that's true, because Jeff Eleanor keeps tweeting out stuff about how great the game looks. But that's my first possibility, is that you have Warner Brothers looking at it and saying, ooh, we don't know. The second is that that's just how they operate, or that maybe the game is quite a ways out still. And with that, I think it was way back. I know Salvage has that. It's an interesting theory of like May 2019 from Patrick Redding. That may be a stretch, but at the same time, he tweeted it out like in December after the Game Awards. And if you'll remember, Warner Brothers Games Montreal was in LA around that time too, and they said that they were meeting with their partners at Warner Brothers. So let's assume for a minute that that was to show off their game and to get feedback and say, hey, this is what we have. And maybe it was a meeting. Like that's interesting timing for a meeting when they don't have anything slated for later this year, like the main November, December, October and November is when games sell the very best. And so they don't have a AAA game, but they're meeting the year previous to show off what they have. So that could be a good indicator. And right after that, they say May 2019. So maybe they just in that meeting decided, all right, we're not going to say anything until May, and that's when we're going to announce the game. So I think that's possible. I think there's a slight chance that maybe Warner Brothers is unhappy with the game. But I don't know that would be the case, because they're probably working on something super safe after so many issues.
I agree. I think that they really are being courteous. And the thing that I notice about WB Games Montreal employees is that they all tweet about how much they love the studio that they work for. They love their coworkers and their sort of the environment in the studio. In other words, like, it doesn't seem to me that WB Montreal is a studio in turmoil. I don't get that vibe at all from anyone. I think that, they have had cancellations and what have you, but I think that going back to what I said, like, they want to make sure that they make the best game that they can, and the developers, it's not their job to be sort of mediating this. Like, they want to make the best game possible. It's the marketing department's job to make sure that us fans are being satiated up to at least a minimum point. And from the studio's perspective, I think that the game is ready when it's ready.
But also I think that this year is such a good such a good year to announce the game, because it's Batman's 80th anniversary. It's Arkham Asylum's 10th anniversary. And it's weird because they don't seem to be giving any, like, I guess that's kind of interesting that, like, they're not really talking too much about Arkham Asylum's 10th anniversary, because with other I know I keep going back to BioShock, but I feel like it just has good parallels. But when it was that game's 10th anniversary, they held a huge party over at like PAX or something, and they invited every fan out for free or something. And it was like this huge event. With Arkham Asylum, it's a beloved game that got a remaster. As bad as it was, it still got a remaster. But they're not really doing anything. They had like a black and white statue or something, but that was the extent that they talked about it. So they're being really quiet about the fact that it's Arkham Asylum's 10th anniversary, which I think is interesting. But then we also have the Joker movie coming out. So there's going to be a lot of Batman press going on in the media. So if there's a game to sort of coincide with that, I think that would be really a smart move on their part.
Mm-hmm. So Batman Arkham Asylum came out in August of 2009.
Exactly.
I hope that they're not waiting for the 10-year anniversary of
terrible
of the game to announce it. And here's the other thing. I'll just say this. I think that it's within their best interest to announce the game, because there's so much BS out there for these games. Like, I get DMs every day from someone like, I have an inside source.
Yeah,
That
same.
is this, like, literally every day. There's, like, some, and I don't mean to be rude, like, everyone that has DM'd me that is probably, like, in here because they're huge fans.
Yeah.
And, like, so I'm not shitting on anyone. I'm not even saying you're wrong. You might be right, but I just get so many people that, of course, like, most of them are wrong, and maybe I'm skipping past the one that's actually accurate. But the thing is, like, I don't know, and everyone's like, I have an inside source that's telling me this, and I'm like, dude, you're like 15. Like, what? What are you
Yeah.
talking about? And then they post it on Reddit, and then it gets a bunch of traction. Somebody's DMing me today and was like, look at this Reddit post about Batman Beyond. Somebody that used to work at the studio saying this, and tomorrow it'll be a new Reddit post, and I'll have 100 tweets about that. And then I go on YouTube and I talk about it, and people are like, well, this is fake. You shouldn't even be talking about this. And there's just like, oh, it's such a headache, and it's just, the headache could be satiated if they just please mediate all of the garbage that is in the ethos right now
Exactly.
of the community. And I love the Batman games community, don't get me wrong. It's just that we've been waiting for so long. I totally understand that I would be doing the same thing. I would be picking up on every bit of information possible. But literally, the press, and it's the press's fault too, by the way. I remember 2 months ago, this guy Eddie Mendoza, he posted that concept art. If you search it, there's like so many headlines that are like, Batman Arkham games concept art leaked, and it's literally like the Eddie Mendoza stuff. Even though Eddie Mendoza said like 50,000 times, like, I work at Apple, and
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
not.
and this is fan art. I just did this for fun. But then you get YouTubers like J-Man who get on and make like some big video of like, oh, this is real. This is really for the next Batman game. And everyone's like, wow, you at least showed us the images, unlike Slickmoff. But the thing is,
Did people really say that?
yeah, there was a comment that was like, at least you showed us the images, so this is more believable. With
Oh, then
thing is,
then my reporting of the
Yeah.
Damien got it.
yeah, but the thing about that, if those images were real, his channel would have been taken down by
Thank
Warner Brothers. He
you.
would have got the video would have been taken down. So best case scenario, the video had been taken down and he would have gotten a copyright strike. Worst case scenario, he's getting sued and his channel is non-existent anymore because Warner Brothers like the fact that the video is still up on his channel is a testament that it's not real.
This is how. This is the shit test. Is we need to have a guinea pig upload every piece of fake concept art that has ever come out, and if it's on YouTube after 6 hours,
real.
then it's totally fake. Then the picture is fake. And
Exactly.
no, that's exactly the situation. Like, I'm just gonna tell you, I understand that people don't believe me, but like, I know as a matter of fact the concept art that I saw, the Damian Wayne Batman game, was 1,000% real. If I uploaded that shit, I literally would have gotten sued. I guarantee you, because at the time they didn't know it was going to get canceled, right? I mean, that is big shit. They do not mess with that. But if you're just posting fake concept art, then all you're doing is stirring the pot and getting excitement. It's free marketing and advertising for them. Of course they let you keep that up. They're not going to take it down because, and actually in the Batman Arkham Reddit, basically their policy is any speculation, or not speculation, but anyone claiming to have information is automatically removed. So people always freak out to me and they're like, whoa, the Batman Arkham Reddit took down this post, that's confirmation. And that's just their policy, and it's the same thing with concept art. If it's on YouTube, it's fake. That's just a good rule of thumb. And even if you post it on Twitter, they'll actually take it down. If it's really real, they'll go after it and contact Twitter and tell them that they need to take it down. And
yeah, and why would an Apple employee be like? That's my other thing. Why would he be stupid enough to upload photos that are being used in a new Batman game that he drew? That would destroy his own career. Like that there's just nothing credible about that claim that, oh, they could be real, and then like, oh, he took down the images, which I don't think he actually did. Someone told me no, they're still up there, but that was like the next part. Oh, he took them down, they must be real. Or maybe Warner Brothers politely said, hey, we're getting a lot of false claims about what this is, if you could just take these down for a little bit, like.
Yep. And here's the problem too, is that let's assume that this game is not all of our wildest expectations and dreams, which it probably won't be, of like this crazy Batman Beyond game that like is just like the animated series, and it's exactly the way that we're thinking about it, and it has this bat bike and it has this and that, exactly what all the leaks say. Every leak is just every fan's wildest dream. Like today I was just reading one that I was DM'd, and it's like, this game is perfect. Mark Hamill is the Joker, and it is like this and that, and it's like every coolest thing you could ever want from the Arkham
there's no
games.
way. There's no way that it's going to be that good.
Exactly.
Like,
but the problem is that you have thousands of people that are convinced that that's what it is. And then when the trailer comes out and it's just Arkham Origins 2, they're like, oh, I thought this was going to be like really cool and like have... So that's another problem for them. And I'm basically just giving a million reasons why they should announce a trailer. And honestly, the biggest reason is just because I want to see it. So all of these are kind of cover stories. But they are important things for WB to consider, is that you are elongating the spread of misinformation. You are sort of perpetuating all of that misinformation and fake fan excitement that is ultimately going to boil over into disappointment. And that's really their main problem, is that if you announce the trailer now, our expectations are realigned. And not only that, we have a year or whatever to consider our expectations and to forget about all the other stuff, because we have
and then we have stuff to talk about too, because like as of right now, it's like I sit down to make a Batman video. What do I talk about? I don't know if it's an Origin sequel or not. And so it would at least be nice to know what we're looking at so that I could do some speculation. But I can't even really do that just because we don't even know. Like, it would have been nice back in 2015 if they'd have said we're making a Batman game and a Flash game, rather than just saying we're making 2 DC games, because that's just such an open-ended claim. And literally, they could be making like a Watchmen game or something and be like, well, technically it's a DC property, so...
Yeah, exactly. And to me, I've just noticed that a lot of YouTubers are really contrarian. In other words, like anything that you're excited about, they'll try to shit on. So like, there's 2 YouTubers in particular who I won't name, but like, I'll make a video talking about this promising piece of information, and they'll literally like make that same video 3 hours later, but they'll just be giving like every reason as to why we shouldn't be excited about it and why everyone should just be sad and depressed just like them. And they're literally just like, okay, so this is why why we shouldn't be excited about this, blah, 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 blah. And they go on and on down the list. And in the end, the person that you saw this from first is a fraud, and they suck, and never watch their videos.
You should watch my content.
Yeah. No, and it's like, there's a lot of YouTubers like that basically, they'll come up with their own bullshit. But if somebody else reports on anything, even directly from a studio dev teasing something, they're just like, nope, you guys should be like so pessimistic right now, just like me, and
you should be ashamed of yourselves for spreading false hype.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of negativity around some things right now. But for everyone in here, I am super. This has been a great stream. I'm really happy that everyone came out, and I think that this is a pretty good stopping point. We touched on a lot of stuff. We touched about Rocksteady. We talked about, a lot of different stuff. But I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Jake, we should definitely do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe next month we can do something. And
we've been talking about doing a podcast, and since the announcement is taking so long, maybe we just go ahead and start talking every now and then.
Yep. I think
we get Salvage on here, and
so ultimately the plan, guys, for everyone that doesn't know, Jake, Salvage, and I, we are going to be doing a live stream leading up to the new Batman Arkham, or new Batman, new DC games, whatever they've got cooking over there. And that live stream is probably going to be every week as it's close to the game, like in the months leading up to it, and before then maybe like every other week, once a month. For now, we're going to do once a month until an announcement, probably. Jake, is probably what I would say is best.
For sure.
Just because we don't want to overdo it before then. Also, the Gotham Knights has actually been a huge success. Not to say I was surprised, but it's just because, like we've been talking about, there's nothing really to get excited about at the moment. But the Gotham Knights, can't remember how many followers it has. It has 2,000 followers. I mean, really a great start. For those of you who don't know, it's a fan community for the DC video games, and we talk about the Batman Arkham games. We have polls on it and all that kind of stuff. We talk about controversial issues, like for instance, the Batman killing controversy that was a couple weeks ago, if you remember. We talk about all kinds of fun stuff. It's a great community. But anyway, my point in mentioning is that that community is really going to take off once we have an announcement. Think about the Spidey Squad. It really took off when that excitement was concrete and going somewhere. And as soon as we get that concrete sense of direction, the podcast is going to be excellent. I'm going to be uploading as often as possible. I know Jake will be as well. We'll be doing stuff with the Gotham Knights, all kinds of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it all. And Jake, thanks so much for coming on, and I
Yep, thanks for
really,
having me.
really have so much respect for everyone in here that's sticking with the Batman Arkham games and keeping this fan community alive that we all love so much. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. After this, in 5 minutes, I might actually be streaming Apex Legends. So if you guys want to stick around for that, no promises. Actually, I will. I will stream it for a little bit. So if you guys want to stick around and watch that, definitely, I'll be back live in about 5 to 10 minutes after I use the bathroom and eat and everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next live stream.